So that's 3, and we're drawing it 2 times. So that's kind of what proves to us that the answer of 3 times 2 will be 6. Oops. And the other way is thinking of it as 3 groups of 2. So this would mean drawing the number 2 3 times and adding it all together, which you'll see also gives us the same answer. So you can flip it either way. You can do 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. Either way, it'll give you the same thing. So now that we know that multiplication is just addition, I wanted to go over a couple of things. First, the multiples of 0 and the rule that all multiples of 0 follow. And the same thing goes for 1. So the multiples of 0 and the rule that all multiples of 1 follow. So I like to bunch 0 and 1 together because they both have a single rule that applies to all numbers that they're multiples of. So for 0, this rule is that any number multiplied by 0 will just equal 0. And the rule for 1 is that any number multiplied by 1 will equal itself. Okay. So to explain how these things work, I want to show it through using multiplication as addition. So we're going to start with this rule about ones, that any number times 1 is itself. And I want to explain it by looking at it through multiplication as addition. So if we look at the phrase 3 times 2, you'll notice the difference between 3 times 2 and 3 times 1 is that the second number is just getting 1 lower. So the way that we're going to draw this out is just like with 3 times 2, we drew it as 2 3s, so 2 groups of 3. When we do 3 times 1, we're only going to have 1 group of 3. So we'll only draw 1 3, and that's why this rule is true, that any number times 1 is going to be itself. Because anytime we just have something times 1, we're just going to have 1 group of that thing. So that number won't change at all. We'll just draw that number once. So that's why that'll be the case. And now what I want to show you guys is instead of 3 times 2 and 3 times 1, we now go 1 lower, and we do 3 times 0. I want to create a pattern here and show you guys. So when it was 3 times 2, we drew 3 2 times and added it together. When it was 3 times 1, we drew 3 once. And what I want you guys to tell me is when it's 3 times 0, how many times are we going to draw 3? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. Awesome. I'm seeing basically everybody say 0, and that's correct. So we're going to draw 3 0 times, because with 3 times 2, we drew it 2 times. With 3 times 1, we drew it 1 time. And with 3 times 0, then we are going to draw it 0 times. And so what does it look like when we draw 3 0 times? This means that there's 0 groups of 3. So it means we're not going to draw 3 at all. So it means we have nothing. And the way that we identify or classify nothing when we talk about math is we use 0. So we'll just draw 0 instead of any 3s to show that we have 0 3s. Okay. And that's how this will work. So that's just a quick explanation of why those rules are what they are. So now let's move into talking about multiples of 2. And also multiples of 3. And for multiples of 2 and multiples of 3, each of them have their own little check that you can use to make sure that you're on the right path. So when it comes to multiples of 2, what you want to do is check if your answer is even. And why is this? Well, if we look back to our original practice expression of 3 times 2, we could think of 3 times 2 as 3 groups of 2 being added together. And you'll notice that when you're adding these 2's together, because 2 is an even number, you're just going to keep adding 2 to 2 to 2 and so on. But since you're only adding 2's, you're just adding an even number to another even number to another even number to another even number. So it'll never become odd. It'll always stay even because it's just a list of 2's that you're adding. And this will work. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oh, did I lose that text? Darn. Okay, I'll have to type that back. Oh, there we go, it's back. And this will work for any multiple of 2. So even something like, let's say, 5 times 2. 5 times 2 will be just like this, except now we are going to have 5 2's being added together. So 5 times 2 will look like this. And that's another way of proving that we'd get to the same answer, which is 10. But what you can see is because we're only adding 2's together, it's always going to be an even number the whole time as you're adding it through. So this is why any multiple of 2 will be an even number. So let's say you would try to get 5 times 2, and the answer you had gotten was something like 11. The way you would check yourself is you would check to see if 11 was even or odd. And the way you check it is you check the last digit. If the last digit is even, then the whole number is even. If the last digit is odd, then the entire number is odd. So in this case, the last digit is a 1, and 1 is an odd number. So the entire number is going to be odd. And if 11 is odd, then it can't be a multiple of 2, so we know it can't be 11. So maybe we'll try again, and this time we'll get 10. So now when we check it, we'll check the last digit, which is 0. 0 is an even number. And because 0 is even, that means that 10 is even. And because 10 is even, it passes our check. So this means that 10 could be the right answer, but it doesn't guarantee that 10 is the right answer, because we could have gotten something like 8 instead of 10, and 8 would be an even number, so 8 would pass the check, even though it's the wrong answer. So what the check does is it doesn't give you the right answer, it just makes sure that you're not making a silly mistake. You're not saying that a multiple of 2 is an odd number, because that's impossible. So you could get the wrong answer and still pass the check, but it's still valuable to do because it tells you if you're on the right path. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. People are saying no. Great. So if I gave you guys a number like 321, is this a multiple of 2? Yes or no? Let me know. Okay. Almost everyone is saying no, and here's why. What you would do is you would look at this 1, and because 1 is an odd number, that means the entire number, 321, is going to be an odd number. So that means if it's odd, it cannot be a multiple of 2. So good stuff. So now let's look at multiples of 3 and see what the way we would check our answer is for multiples of 3. Okay, so what you want to do for 3 is you want to check to see if the digits of the answer add to a multiple of 3. So how about I'll use the same number I just did, and this will be my example. We did 321, and we want to figure out whether 321 is a multiple of 3. So the way we're going to check it is we're going to add together all of these digits. So the 3 is a digit, the 2 is a digit, and the 1 is a digit. So what we'll do, and we'll just write this below, is we'll do the 3 plus the 2 plus the 1. And 3 plus 2 plus 1, if you do the addition, will be 6. And now we know that 6 is a multiple of 3 because 3 times 2 is 6, as we wrote up here. 3 times 2 is 6. So we know that 6 is a multiple of 3, and if 6 is a multiple of 3, then 321 is also going to be a multiple of 3, so it'll pass the test. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys go ahead and practice that skill now. Maybe we'll do a few of these, see how people do. Let's try something like 105. So tell me in the chat, yes or no. Is 105 going to be a multiple of 3? Let me know yes or no in chat. Okay, I'm seeing a couple yeses, a couple no's. It's quite mixed up right now. So I'll give everybody a shot to put their answer, and then we'll work through this together. Okay. So let's try this out. To figure it out, we would add up these digits together. So the digits are the 1, the 0, and the 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 plus 0 plus 5. So really, we're doing 1 plus 5, and 1 plus 5 is 6. And we know from the last problem that 6 is a multiple of 3. So if 6 is a multiple of 3, then 105 is a multiple of 3. So it passes our check, and the answer here would be yes. Does anybody have a question about how we figured this out? If so, ask it in the chat. If not, we're going to do another practice problem on these to make sure that everybody is on the same page going forward. Okay. Annabelle says that she still does not get it. So let's go ahead and do another practice one, and hopefully Dorsey says I was confused about if the 10 counted as 10. Okay, got it. So this is not a 10. When we're separating into digits, it's each number for itself. So this is a 1, this is a 0, and this is a 5. So this is not a 10 and a 5. It's a 1, and then a 0, and then a 5. So you add each of those together. That's how. Okay, Gracia says they have a question. Go ahead, ask your question while I set up the next problem. Okay, so I want everybody else to try 248. So tell me, yes or no, is 248 a multiple of 3? Okay, this time I'm seeing a lot of people say no, and only a few people say yes. So let's go ahead and check it and see how we would test this. So the way we're going to test it is we're going to separate all the different digits. So the 2 is a digit, this 4 is a digit, and this 8 is also a digit. So we're going to add all those together. So we'll do 2 plus 4 plus 8. So 2 plus 4 is 6, and 6 plus 8 is 14. So we'll get 4. And 14 is not a multiple of 3. So 14 is not a multiple of 3. Then 248 is not going to be a multiple of 3. And the answer is no. Okay, if anyone has any questions, put it in chat. If not, we're going to do maybe one more of these. Hanson says, yo, let's do one more practice. Sure thing. Nicole asks to use the bathroom. Yes, of course you can use the bathroom. Anyone can use the bathroom whenever you have to. Just make sure to come back to class afterwards. Okay, so for our last one, let's do 412. Is 412 a multiple of 3? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. Okay. A lot of people saying no, and a few people are still saying yes. Yes, Grisha, do you have a question? So here's how we're going to check it. We're going to add these digits up together. Okay, Grisha, go ahead and ask your question in the chat so I can see it. So we're going to do 4 plus 1 plus 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3, and 4 plus 3 is 7. And 7 is not a multiple of 3. So 412 is also going to not be a multiple of 3. Grisha said, how much is 18 times 8? I think that's going to be 144, but we'll get to multiples of 8 later on in the class. We should get onto that actually next class. So today we're going to make it up to 6. So we'll go through our 6s, and we'll get to 8s next Tuesday. So I'll make sure to use that as a practice problem then. If I forget, please remind me. Okay, so that's a good practice. That'll be all for our review today. And let's get on to the new material. The first thing to look for that we're going to do is multiples of 4. And the trick to multiples of 4 is realizing that 2 times 2 equals 4. So just like before when we were saying how any multiple of 2 would be even because they're just going to be a sum of 2's being added together. We can also say that multiples of 4 are also going to be even every time because 2 times 2 equals 4. And so all you're multiplying is 2 2's together. And because you're just adding 2 2's when you multiply 2 times 2, if a 4 can just be made of 2's, then any multiple of 4 can be written out as a sum of 2's being added together. And anytime we just have 2's being added together, it'll be an even number. So the rule still applies, the same one that we use for 2's, where you want to check that your answer is even. Okay, and so that'll be the rule when it comes to 4's. Now let me paste in the list of 4's first. Okay, Nova Cat asks, can I use the bathroom? Yeah, of course. Anyone's free to use the bathroom whenever. Just make sure to come back to class afterwards. Okay, so now if we look at the numbers here, you'll notice that all of them are even. They all end in even numbers, which makes the numbers even. The other thing that I want to point out, sorry about that, is that when you're checking to make sure your answer is even, is that just because the answer is even doesn't mean that your answer is correct. So if we look here, we have 0 and then it goes to 4. If we look at a number like 2, 2 is a number that's even, but it's not a multiple of 4. And that's because all multiples of 4 are a multiple of 2, because 2 times 2 equals 4. But not all 4s are going to be, or rather, sorry, not all even numbers multiples of 4. Thank you, Sakasai. I appreciate that. Okay, so next, the thing I wanted to show you guys is another pattern for when you're memorizing this. You'll notice it goes 0, 4, 8, 2, 6 as you count up, and then it repeats 0, 4, 8, 2, 6, and this will keep going. So the last digit will repeat in this pattern of going 0, 4, 8, 2, 6. Just another trick to help you. In the meantime, let's start with some practice problems. So let's start with 4 times 14. Go ahead and give 4 times 14 a shot. Feel free to use this chart to help you. Laura asks, is the answer 56? Well, let's find out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply these 4s together, which we see here will give us 16. So we'll carry the 1 over, leave the 6 behind. And then 4 times 1. Anything times 1 will be itself. So 4 times 1 will be 4. And then we need to remember to add this 1 here. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So that will give us 56. Then we want to check our answer, making sure that that last digit is even, which it is. So it passes our check. So 56 will be our answer. Zachary says he's having audio problems. Zach, maybe try leaving the call and then coming right back. That might help you fix it. I'm not sure. Okay, does this make sense to everybody else, or does anybody else have questions on this problem? Right, Sagatsai says it makes sense. Matthew says no questions. Awesome. If you do have a question, just go ahead and put it in the chat and I will get it. Okay, in the meantime, we're to try another problem. Let's try 4 times 17. I think 7s are always tough. So go ahead and give 17 times 4 a shot, put your answer in chat, and we'll see how everybody's doing. So far it's been so good. A couple of people are making a couple small errors, but for the most part, people are getting the right answer. So I'm happy to see that. Okay. Yep, a lot of you understand. So now let's go through how to do it. We want to do 7 times 4 to begin with, and that'll get us 28. So once we have 28, we're going to carry over that 2 and leave the 8 behind. Then we'll do 4 times 1, which anything times 1 is itself. So 4 times 1 will be 4. And then we need to remember to add this 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So our answer would be 68. And the way we check this is we look at the last number and we make sure that it is even. And in this case, 8 is an even number, so 68 is even. So that'll be our answer. Okay. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If not, we're going to go ahead. We'll do maybe 1 or 2 more practice problems with our force. Let's try 23 times 4. Okay. A lot of people are putting a couple different answers here. Okay, so let's see how we do this. 3 times 4, we know is going to be 12. 4 plus 4 plus 4. So we'll carry 1 over, leave this 2 behind. The next step is doing 2 times 4, which is like 4 plus 4, which is 8. Then we need to remember to add this 1 that we carried over. So now it's 8 plus 1, which will be 9. So our final answer here would be 92. And we would check our answer by making sure that the number is even, which 2 ends in a 2, is even. So it passes our check. We'll give it a nice check mark. Okay. If anyone has any questions, let me know in chat. We'll do maybe 1 more practice problem with our force before we move on. So let's go ahead and try for our last one. We'll do 26 times 4. So go ahead and give 26 times 4 a shot. Nathan asks, are you using computer? But yeah. Emily asks, what is spam? Spam is putting something in the chat too many times, especially something that's unrelated to the course. So if you keep posting something, it's not good etiquette. I don't want to do that in this class. Yep, Sagat Sai says this one's tricky, and I agree. I purposely made this last one a little tough for you guys. So let's see how we do it. 6 times 4 is going to be 24. So we carry up a 2 and leave behind this 4. Then we would do 2 times 4, which we can think of as 4 plus 4. It'll be 8. And now we need to remember to add the number we carried over. So it'll be 8 plus 2, with a total of 10. Our final number, 104. So we need to remember to check our number by seeing that 4 an even number, and we'll be good. Okay, so let's move on to our multiples of 5. And multiples of 5, and I think they're very, very easy. And the multiples 5 are easy because answer will end in 0 or 5. If the number being multiplied by 5 is even, answer will end in 0. And then if the number being multiplied is odd, it'll end in a 5. So let me show what I mean by this. What I mean is, if we do something like 5 times 3, because 3, the number being multiplied by, is an odd number, we know that it's going to end in a 5. So if we get something like 3 times 5 being 20, we know that our number isn't going to be correct because it ends in a 0. We know it has to end in a 5, so maybe after checking ourselves, then we would get the right answer, which is that 3 times 5 is going to be 15. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in the multiples of 5 up to 12 now. Okay. And I'll just put this a little to the side. And I want to just start doing some practice problems. I think, yeah, these should be pretty easy. So let's try 14 times 5. So note that 14 is an even number. So make the decision, will I have to end in a 0 or a 5 if 14 is an even number? Go ahead and give that a shot. Okay. I see a lot of you getting the right answer, but I want to clarify something. I see a lot of people putting a 0 as their answer, and this is not going to be the case. What I meant when I said if the number being multiplied by 5 is even, the answer will end in a 0. I did not mean that the answer would be 0, but it'll end in a 0. So let me show what I mean. Our chart here is going to be 20. So we'll carry over this 2, and then we'll put in a 0 here. So this number is going to just end in a 0, but it doesn't mean the number itself is going to be 0. So our next step would be 5 times 1, which anything times 1 is itself. So 5 times 1 will be 5. And then we add this 2 to make it 7. So our answer would be 70, not just 0. So that 70 ends with a 0. Its last digit is a 0, which is what we want to check for because 14 is an even number, so we know that this number will end in a 0. So I can see why you guys made that mistake, and I just wanted to make sure you understand how to get to the right answer. Okay, let's go ahead and try another multiple of 5. Let's try this time maybe 17 times 5. Okay. Everyone remember, because to check whether 17 is odd or even, and then follow which one of these rules, depending on which one it is. That way you know what number it will end in. Okay, so let's see how we do this. We would do 7 times 5, which we know, is going to be 35. So since this is going to be 35, we will carry this 3 and leave this 5 behind. So we know that it'll end in 5 because 17 is an odd number. So this rule tells us it'll end in a 5, so we know we're going in the right direction. Then 5 times 1 is 5. And 5, we need to add this 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8. So our answer will be 85. And the way we would check this is by making sure that since the number that is being multiplied, which is this 17, is an odd number, it will end in 5, which it does. 85, its final digit is a 5. So passes our check. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and ask them now. If not, we'll do one more problem with working with these 5s. Pranav says, can I use the restroom? Of course. Go ahead and use the restroom. You just come back whenever you're done. Henson asked to do one more. Of course. Let's go ahead and try 21 times 5. Go ahead and give it a shot. Okay, Socket Sai says this one's tricky. I agree. I always try to make the last one a little more difficult than the others. That way it challenges you to see if you really know the concept. Okay, let's go ahead and see how this is done. So first we would do 5 times 1. Anything times 1 is itself, so it's just 5. And we know because 21 is an odd number, that when it's being multiplied, it'll end in a 5. So that's a good sign. And then 2 times 5 is 10. So we just put in a 10, and our answer will be 105. Good job, Second Side. Okay, so that wraps it up for our 5s. Let's go ahead and move on to our multiples of 6. So multiples of 6 are cool in that 6 can be written as 3 times 2 equaling 6. So because 6 can be made from 3 and 2, we can use both of the rules, the checks that we wrote for 3 and 2 on 6. And we need both of them to pass for a number to be a multiple of 6. So the first check will be the check on 2's, which is check that answer is even, right? Now the second check we do is the check for multiples of 3. So for multiples of 3, it was to check that digits of the answer add up to a multiple of 3. So what we're going to do for 6's is we're going to try both of those checks. So let's look at a number like 18. To see whether 18 is a multiple of 6, we're going to do both checks. So we're going to start with the first check to make sure that it's even. So the last digit is an 8, and 8 is an even number, so it passes the first check. And then the second check is adding both of these digits and seeing if they're equal to a multiple of 3. So 1 plus 8 will give us 9. Then 9 is a multiple of 3. So if 9 is a multiple of 3, then 18 is a multiple of 3. So if it is not even, the answer is not right. Correct. And when it comes to these checks, if either of the checks are wrong, it's not a multiple of 6. You need both checks to be to have a multiple of 6. So let's have you guys try a number like 21. Is 21 a multiple of 6? Let me know in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people say no. So let's see why. Our first check is to see if the answer is even, which 21 will end with a 1. And since 1 is an odd number, then 21 will be an odd number, so it won't pass the first check. We'll go ahead and try the second check though, just in case. Not that it'll change anything, but just to see. 21 will add up 2 plus 1, which will be 3. So it will pass the second check, but not the first check. And it needs to pass both checks to be a multiple of 6. So 21 is not a multiple of 6. And the answer for this one is no. So this is the way I'm going to want you guys to check your answer after we do a multiple of 6. So let's go, and I'm going to paste in the multiples of 6 to help you guys out. So the multiples of 6 that are going up to 12. This is a list I recommend you guys write down and begin to memorize. Also, at the end of the class, I'm going to try to share a Kahoot with everybody. Not a Kahoot, sorry, a Quizlet with everybody. That'll have like a digital classroom, digital flashcards. Sorry, I didn't mean to say Kahoot. I apologize. I got your hopes up. Okay, so let's go. Yeah, Connor said they need to go. Yeah, go ahead. You're fine. Let's do some practice problems. So let's try 6 times 14. Go ahead and give 6 times 14 or 14 times 6. It's the same thing. Go ahead and give this one a shot. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people put the right answer. That's good to see. So first we would do 6 times 4, which we know is 24. So we'll carry this 2 over. And we'll leave the 4 behind. Then we do 6 times 1, which anything times 1 is itself. So that'll be 6. And we add the 2. So now 6 plus 2 is 8. So our answer will be 84. And now we need to check 84. So we'll do the double check on 84. So first of all, to check if it's even, we look at the last digit. 4 is an even number, so 84 is even, so it gets 1 check mark. And now we need to check it with the 3 check. So we'll do 8 plus 4, which will add up to 12. And we know that 12 is a multiple of 3 because 3 times 4 is 12. So it'll pass both of these checks. So that'll be our answer. Once again, even if it passes both checks, it doesn't mean that you have the right answer. It just means that you do have a multiple of 6. Okay. So let's go ahead and try another one. Let's try 6 times 16. Go ahead and give this one a shot. Yeah, so I guess I noticed that this one's a little trickier. Yep, I tried to make it a little tougher for you guys. So let's see how you guys do. A lot of people are putting the right answer. It's good to see. A couple people are a little bit off. And that's okay. We're just practicing. Okay, so let's see how we would solve this. First of all, we would do 6 times 6, which we know is going to be 36. So we'll carry the 3 and leave the 6 behind. Then we'll do 6 times 1, which anything times 1 is itself, so it'll just be 6. And then we add the 3 to it, so 6 plus 3 is 9. So our answer will be 96. We have to remember to check ourselves though. Good job, Socket Side. For 96, we need to make sure it is even. So the last digit is a 6. And 6 is an even number. So 96 will be even. It gets its first check mark. Now we need to check it with the check for 3s, where we add 9 and 6 together. And 9 and 6 will give us 15. And we know that 15 is a multiple of 3 because 5 times 3 will give us 15. So if 15 is a multiple of 3, then 96 will be a multiple of 3. And that'll be our answer. Okay, we'll do one more before we wrap up. And we'll make this one a little more difficult. Let's do 6 times 18. Oh, Socket Sai says this is very fun. I'm glad to hear that. That is kind of my goal. So let's try 6 times 18. Okay, I'm glad to see nobody's gotten the wrong answer yet on this one. We've kept up the hot streak. We're still going. Very impressive, everybody. So I did make this last one, the toughest, just to stretch you guys and make you guys grow and learn a little bit. So 6 times 8, as we know, is going to be 48. So we'll carry over this 4, leave behind this 8. Then we'll do 6 times 1, which will be 6, because anything times 1 is itself. And remember, after we have 6, to add 4 to it, 6 plus 4 is 10. So we just write out 10 in front of this 8, and that'll make our answer 108. So you got to remember, we can't just be happy with that. We got to make sure that we have a good answer. This won't guarantee that it's the right answer, but it'll let us know that we at least got a multiple of 6. So the first step is making sure that this number is even. If it ends in an 8 is an even number, then 108 will be even, so it gets its first check mark. And the way to check it for the 3's check is to add up all the digits and see if it's a multiple of 3. So we'll add up 1, 0, and 8, which will add up to 9. And 9 we know is a multiple of 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. So if 9 is a multiple of 3, then 108 is also a multiple of 3, and 108 is a good answer. That will be our answer. Okay. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat now. Okay. If not, that will wrap it up here for today. So I will see you all on Tuesday. Thank you all for working so hard in the chat. I really appreciate you guys, all answering and participating. It makes my life very easy, and I really enjoy teaching students like you. So thank you all for coming and trying your hardest. I appreciate it, and I will see you all on Tuesday. Okay. Bye, everybody.